The day I lost my father, I also lost my place in the world, or at least that's how it felt as I stood outside the locked gates of the house that once echoed with his laughter. The sky was heavy with gray clouds, mirroring the weight in my chest, and my hands trembled as I rang the doorbell again, hoping this time someone would answer with kindness instead of silence. But I already knew who stood between me and my final goodbye. My stepmother, the woman who had never truly accepted me, had made sure I would not step inside, even on the day my father was being prepared for his final journey. I pressed my forehead against the cold metal gate, remembering the warmth of my father's embrace, his steady voice telling me that no matter what happened, family would always find a way back to each other. He had remarried when I was 17, after years of loneliness following my mother's passing. I tried to welcome the new woman into our lives, to respect her presence, to believe that she too could become part of our family. But her smiles were always measured, her words polite but distant, and over time, the gap between us became a silent wall neither of us could break. When my father fell ill, I visited as often as I could, balancing work and the growing tension at home. Each visit felt shorter, more guarded, as my stepmother began controlling access to him, insisting he needed rest, that I was disturbing his peace. I noticed how he would hold my hand a little longer each time I left, his eyes filled with unspoken words, as if he wanted to say something important, but didn't know how. The call about his passing came early in the morning, and for a moment, the world stood still. I rushed to the house, my heart pounding with grief and urgency, only to be stopped at the gate by a security guard who avoided my eyes. "Madam said you're not allowed inside," he muttered, and those words felt sharper than any pain I had ever known. I begged, I cried, I explained that I was his daughter, that I deserved to say goodbye, but the gate remained closed, and the house that once felt like home became a distant place I no longer belonged to. Neighbors began to gather, whispering quietly, their sympathetic glances only deepening my humiliation. I could feel their judgment, their pity, and it made me feel small and powerless. I sat on the pavement outside the gate, tears streaming down my face, wondering how love could be so easily erased by someone else's bitterness. Hours passed, and still, I was not allowed inside. The funeral preparations went on without me, as if I had never been part of his life at all. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, my phone rang. It was an unknown number, and for a moment, I hesitated before answering, my voice barely steady. On the other end was a calm, professional tone. "Hello, is this Aisha? My name is Mr. Aman. I'm your father's lawyer." The words caught me off guard, and I sat up, wiping my tears as I listened. He explained that my father had left behind a file, with specific instructions that it be opened only after his passing, and that I was to be present. The next day, I met Mr. Aman at his office, a quiet place filled with books and a sense of order that felt comforting after the chaos of the previous day. He looked at me with a mixture of sympathy and respect, as if he already knew what I had been through. Without unnecessary words, he placed a file on the table and slid it toward me. "Your father wanted you to have this," he said gently. My hands shook as I opened the file, revealing neatly organized documents, along with a handwritten letter. The sight of my father's handwriting brought a fresh wave of tears, but I forced myself to read, clinging to every word as if it were a piece of him still alive. He wrote about his love for me, about how proud he was of the person I had become, and about his regrets that he had not done enough to protect me from the growing distance in the family. "I know things have not been easy for you," the letter read, "and I'm sorry for the times I remained silent when I should have spoken. But I need you to know that my silence was never indifference. I was trying to hold everything together, even when it felt like it was falling apart. If you are reading this, it means I am no longer there to say these words in person, but I hope you will understand my heart." Tears blurred my vision as I continued reading. He had made arrangements, ensuring that I would not be left alone or forgotten. The documents included details of a trust in my name, but more importantly, they contained instructions that could not be ignored, legal directives that ensured my right to be part of his final rights and decisions regarding his legacy. It was his way of giving me a voice, even in his absence. Mr. Rahman explained everything carefully, his tone steady and reassuring. "Your father anticipated difficulties," he said. "He wanted to make sure you would be protected, that your rights as his daughter would be respected." For the first time since his passing, I felt a flicker of strength return to me. It wasn't about money or property. It was about being seen, being acknowledged, and being given the dignity I had been denied. Armed with the documents, I returned to the house, my heart still heavy but now carrying a quiet determination. The same gate stood before me, but this time I was not alone in my helplessness. When the security guard saw me, he hesitated, recognizing something different in my stance. I handed him the papers and asked him to call my stepmother. When she appeared, her expression was as composed as ever, but there was a hint of unease in her eyes. I met her gaze, not with anger, but with a calm resolve that surprised even me. "I'm not here to fight," I said softly. "I'm here to say goodbye to my father." I handed her the documents, watching as she read through them, her composure slowly shifting into something more uncertain. For a moment, there was silence, thick and heavy, as if the entire world was waiting for her response. Then, without a word, she stepped aside, and the gate was opened. It wasn't a gesture of warmth or reconciliation, but it was enough. It was the door I needed to walk through, not just physically but emotionally. Inside the house, everything felt both familiar and distant. The air carried the scent of incense, and quiet prayers echoed in the background. I walked slowly, each step filled with memories, until I reached the room where my father lay. Seeing him there, still and peaceful, broke something inside me, but it also brought a strange sense of calm. I sat beside him, holding his hand one last time, whispering the words I had been unable to say before. "I'm here, Dad," I murmured. "I made it." In that moment, all the anger and hurt seemed to fade, replaced by a deep, enduring love that could not be erased by anyone. I realized that while my stepmother had tried to keep me away, she could never take away the bond one shared with him. Love, I understood, is not defined by access or control. It lives in the quiet moments, in the memories we carry, and in the strength we find to keep going. After the funeral, as people began to leave and the house grew quiet, my stepmother approached me. Her expression was softer now, the sharp edges of her usual demeanor worn down by something I couldn't quite place. For a moment, neither of us spoke, the weight of years of misunderstanding hanging between us. "I didn't think you would come back," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't think I would be allowed to," I replied, not with accusation, but with honesty. She looked down, her hands clasped tightly together. "I was afraid," she admitted. "Afraid of losing everything, of being left alone, of not knowing where I stood. I thought keeping you away would make things easier, but I see now that it only made everything worse." Her words didn't erase the pain, but they opened a door to understanding. For the first time, I saw her not as an adversary, but as a person shaped by her own fears and insecurities. It didn't justify her actions, but it made them human. "We both lost him," I said gently. "And maybe we can find a way to move forward, not as enemies, but as people who cared about the same person." She nodded, tears filling her eyes, and in that moment, something shifted between us. Not forgiveness, not yet, but the possibility of it. As I walked away from the house that evening, I realized that my father's greatest gift was not the file or the legal protections he had left behind, but the reminder of who I was and the strength I carried within me. He had given me the courage to stand up for myself, to claim my place, and to choose compassion even in the face of pain. Life doesn't always give us the endings we expect, and people don't always act the way we hope they will. But love, true love, has a way of enduring beyond misunderstandings, beyond conflicts, and even beyond loss. It teaches us that strength is not in holding on to anger, but in finding the grace to let it go. And as I looked up at the fading light in the sky, I felt a quiet sense of peace settle in my heart, knowing that even though my father was gone, the love he had given me would continue to guide me, shaping not just who I was, but who I chose to become.